Hi guys, in this episode I'm going to be covering base coating. You might be wondering what I did last episode and what the difference is. Priming, you're just getting the model ready for paint. Base coating is when you put on the prime colour you're going to be using. I'm taking, as you can see, the Primaris Marine from the Conquest magazine. This is the guy with the scanner, the auger. I'm going to be using the paints from the Conquest magazine. So this guy is going to be an ultramarine. Before you ask, yes, I do feel a tad dirty, but what are you going to do? I'm putting the paints on the shoulder pad first. I always tend to start with the shoulder pad because I thin the paint, but it gives me an idea whether or not it's thin enough. I always find a nice big flat surface is a good place to start, because then worst case scenario, if you get it wrong, you can then just take a bit of tissue paper, wipe it off and start again. It's always worth making sure you get in every little crevice with these models. As you're doing it, it's going to be more difficult to spot when you go back. You can see here that I'm painting the arm. I'm not painting the scanner itself because that's going to be base coated in a different colour at a later point. Please ignore the people in the background. They're my family. I do my best to ignore them as well. Not always successfully. I'm just going over, giving it a smoother and all over coat as I can. Ooh. I'm catching the back of the scanner. For some reason I changed my mind there. It's worth noting with these videos, and this is my first time doing it, but I'm recording a video when I can and then recording the voiceover at a later point, so I may get a bit funky. Just going and giving the Aquila some nice coverage there. Also getting in behind the shoulder blades. The shoulder pads there are always a bit of a tricky area, because they go on the miniature last in most cases. Not so bad with these guys. The quick fit Marines and the easy to build Marines have the shoulder pads built on them. Just covering the legs there. Sorry if the focus zooms in and out a bit. Obviously I'm just focusing on the Marine over the top of the camera, so sometimes I don't notice when it goes out of focus there. In case you're wondering, the consistency you're looking for with the paint is about that of full fat milk, which is roughly similar to what you've got with the base coat. Some people like to do it thinner and do multiple coats. You will notice that I do go back over and do additional coats. I also go back over anywhere that I've put too much paint on and remove some of the paint just to avoid any loss of detail. But everyone has their own way of doing it. My base coats tend to be quick and sometimes a bit rough. I like to go for a full cover there. I even paint under the feet. Again, some people may be going, well, why are you going to paint under the feet? No one's going to see under there. I like to get every piece of the model. And in addition to that, I'm probably going to paint the pads under the feet black again, but I like to have it all done as precisely as I can. Again, I'm one of those guys who will look at a model, notice a bit, and then won't be able to resist going in and fixing that bit, because otherwise it'll bug me forever. I'm just getting the other shoulder pad there, making sure that I've got a nice smooth coat. You'll often find that bigger smooth areas don't seem to pick up the paint as well as the detailed areas. if that happens, just make sure that you've painted consistently over the area, so you've got no brush strokes and no lumps, and then go back over it with another thin coat later. This is pretty much the main reason why we tend to thin our coats, because you never know when you're going to get a little bit of inconsistency. As you paint more and as you get more experienced, obviously you will get more consistent, but there are 101 distractions in this world, and you want to be able to fix any mistakes that you might make. Just getting the other foot there. Just using the least little blue. And you can see I'm working in smaller strokes on areas and larger strokes on others. The smaller stroke areas tend to be the areas with more detail. I just want to work the paint into the vents on the back of the leg and into the side of the leg. I don't want black areas and unpainted areas giving a poor effect of lighting. I'm going to go back over it at a later point with wash, which I'll cover in another video, and I'll be using the washes to give a better effect of darkness and shadow. Following that, I'll use dry brushing and then highlighting to bring the colours up. You can see right now he looks fairly flat and fairly two-dimensional for a three-dimensional model. That's fairly normal and that's fairly standard. That's why we go through so many tricks and so many little bits and pieces to make them stand out and to make them look more three-dimensional and more active. That being said, I know people who just paint it with the base colour and then go from there. If that's what makes you happy, there's nothing wrong with that. The thing to remember is there's no right or wrong way of painting. There's only what's right and wrong for you. Some people go into incredible amounts of detail. Other people will just give enough detail so that you can tell what the model is. And neither's wrong. I always feel the more detail and the more realistic it is, the more you can lose yourself in the game and the imaginative parts of the game. But at the same time, it's worth remembering these are fundamentally game pieces, and the main thing is to be able to tell what it is, what it's equipped with, what army it belongs to. And for the sake of people playing Marine versus Marine or Necron versus Necron, whose Necrons are whose. Anything else really is just icing. Anything else is just a plus there to make you feel better about your models. Which is why I do it so much, because I like feeling better about my models. I'm just working in behind the backpack here. Not an area that everyone goes for, but again, I'm a slightly OCD person, and once I start base coating, I just want to get the blue paint in everywhere. You can see also that I'm going back over various areas that I've done before. As the paint dries, it will become more obvious where certain areas need more coverage. Some people will paint the whole model and then stop, let the whole thing dry and go and paint the whole model again. I tend, because I use quite thin paints, and because I thin them with water rather than a retardant or anything else, they tend to dry quickly on the model. They don't tend to dry too quickly on the palette, but it gives me enough time so that I can usually go over and fix any issues while I'm still painting the model and not have to go back and paint it again. But every method is equally valid, and again, it's down to who's doing it. You know, if it makes you feel good, great. If it doesn't, do something else, do it in a different way. It's worth noting with a lot of these models that you don't actually have to be too heavy sometimes with the base coating, bearing in mind what you're going to do later. For example, I'm going to be washing it later. I'm going to be dry brushing it later, so it will get extra coats of paint and doesn't necessarily need everything to be perfect. I just prefer getting a decent cover. Okay, so there we are. That's one ultramarine